Hello and welcome to what is probably going to be my first and last YouTube video. I've had a couple of requests on my Instagram channel, people asking me to do tutorials. I personally don't think I am at a level where I'm in a position to teach anybody anything, but what I've decided to do is to do a video, or maybe several videos depending on how it goes, showing my approach to how I do my drawings, so that if anybody finds that of any use, then something can be learned from it. So here we are inside Autodesk Sketchbook. This is my preferred drawing platform. I'm currently doing this on a Microsoft Surface Pro 3 tablet, and the character which I'm going to be drawing today is Booster Gold. I received a request for this character on my Instagram channel, and I thought that that would be as good a character as any. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing my pencil outline. I like to do this in either blue or black to help with the contrast of that. And as you can probably see, I'm using a square canvas. That's because I'm going to be putting this drawing on Instagram when it's finished, and I always prefer to do them on a square canvas. So let's just make a start, and I'll talk you through how things go. So it's quite important for me when doing one of these drawings to have a good understanding of the character and the context which that character is going to appear, because otherwise if you just do a picture of somebody standing there, it doesn't look particularly good. So obviously Booster Gold is a character who can fly, so I will probably end up doing him in flight, or certainly hovering to some extent. I like to start off with basic shapes, just so that we can get an idea of where things are going to be. So we've got the head there, we've got a bit of a neck, we've got the upper part of the torso, so the chest, putting in some bowling ball shoulders. As far as the abdominal area and the pelvis, the hips, I do a similar size area, slightly smaller because of the style that I do. And just to give you a bit of an idea of how this goes, so we do a line to show where things are going, and I do a rib cage like that. That then comes around the back. In fact, let's just undo that, it's not brilliant. Let's do it over this way. And that comes around the back, and then that helps us later on work out where we're going to be putting the pectoral muscles. Like I say, it's going to be in flight, so if this represents the hip and pelvis area, I like to do effectively what will look like a pair of underpants, so that we can work out where the legs are going to go. So let's put the first thigh in, let's put the second one in, and just putting a hint of where a foot is going to be. And the bottom part of the leg. So that's those basic shapes taken care of. So I'm going to move on to the arms. Now, in terms of what these arms are going to be doing, I think I'm going to go for a typical superhero style pose where the arms are sort of back of the of the body. So a lot of the vast majority of the arm on his right hand side, so left on the screen, is going to be hidden. In fact, that arm's probably a bit too long. Let's try that again. And likewise on this side. Okay, so we've got some of our basic anatomical shapes there to show how we're going to build up on there. I think what I'll do now is put in the basic shapes of the arm muscles. So we've got the upper arm here with the shoulder muscle. Zoom in on this one. So in terms of the forearm, I think it's quite important to understand what this hand is going to be doing before we can draw the forearm, so that we get it as it looks right. So let's just put in some of the basic shapes of the hand here. I'll do that by doing a block first, because this is going to be in a fist, and that helps us understand what position the hand is in, so that we can make sure that the forearm is consistent with that. So the forearm is going to come up from the inside of the elbow, and it's going to go round and down to the to form the wrist, and then at this end it's got to go out, and it's got to form the on the outside of the elbow like that. Now, if you've seen my work, you'll know that I'm not. I always tend to draw on the more cartoony side, so slavish adherence to anatomy is never vital, but it's obviously quite important to try and make sure it looks realistic. So as far as the next hand is concerned, I think that's going to be in a very similar position, but I'm going to put that fist, in a slightly different angle. In fact, now let's try that again. That's better. And we can see that we've got to get the forearm and wrist in there. In fact, I'm just going to rotate that ever so slightly and make it a little bit bigger as well. There we are. And that is going to, you can see we've got the forearm, the elbow joint will be behind, so that can go up like that, and then that's going to go out like that. Right, so we've got some basic shapes there to be working on. Now, obviously we're drawing Booster Gold, and Booster Gold wouldn't be complete without his faithful companion Skeets. Now, I'm going to do Skeets based on the version from the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon. There's various different designs for Skeets, but I'm going to do it based on this version for a number of reasons, mainly because it's the most simple design, and for this video I'm really wanting to concentrate on my approach to drawing the human, or the characters, rather than the secondary aspects of the drawing. So as you can see, what I'm doing is the basic outlines, although to be perfectly fair, there's not actually that much to drawing skeets when we're using this particular design, because that's pretty much it. Might revisit some of this, because I think this could probably do with being a little bit over that way. And same here. Excuse me. Let's get rid of that. So I'm able to actually do this video today because I've got a day off work, which is most unlike me. Okay, so that's some a good start to where we want to be. So before we start doing some of the more finer details, let's just fill in some of these areas. So we've got the top of the rib cage there. We know that's obviously going to come and join down at the top of the pelvis, the hip area, so that's going to come down to form the waist and then come out again at the hip. And just so to show where the waist is going to be, I'm going to draw that line there, which effectively marks the top of those underpants that I told you about earlier. So we can see the back of the rib cage here, so we've got really strong back, and then when that meets the bottom of the rib cage, that's basically going to form the back, which then goes down towards the hips. I'm going to, when I do these style drawings, because of the condensed dimensions, you'll see obviously that I've it's a lot more scrunched up, it's a lot more cartoony in this way, but you'll see that I don't have an awful lot of room for doing all of the abdominal muscles, so what I tend to do is give them a 4-pack, and then we'll see when we've got the rest of the details in as to whether or not it's possible to fit in any more. And then as far as the chest is concerned, we've got the top of the chest there. We've already shown where the pectoral muscles are going to divide, and then we can rotate that round and show where those muscles go round up to the top of the shoulders, and likewise on this side. Now that possibly, I think on reflection, have maybe made those chest muscles a bit too big, so let's see how that can be remedied using this. Let's see if I can move those up a bit. Okay, yeah, that's not so bad. So what I've done there, as you've probably seen, I've used the selection tool to move the selection. The reason why is because, as you're probably aware, the top of the pectoral muscles link up towards the armpit, which of course in this particular drawing is hidden behind the shoulder muscle over here. So I've had to move that up. Now that in turn means that rib cage probably needs to be moved, but rather than actually physically moving it, I'm just going to redefine it and rub some of that out. Okay, now that probably means that I'm now going to have a bit more room actually to work on these. Yeah, I think we can probably make them a little bit more anatomically correct, or iron those out properly later on. Okay, so let's tidy that up there. Right, so we've got the neck there, obviously the shoulder, these muscles down here, the back of the shoulder go round to the top of the arm like that, and it's less pronounced on this side because of the angle, but we have still got that big shoulder sticking out there, and then a little bit of the forearm just hinted behind. Right, let's tidy up some of the legs. So we hinted at the foot pointing down. Now feet, as I'm probably sure you're aware from my other drawings, are not my strong point. I try to do as little detail on feet as I possibly can because I'm rubbish at them. So that's the bottom of that's the foot there. Now, in terms of how we're going to get to that foot, obviously we've got the top of the leg, the thigh coming up this way. We've got the knee, and then that's going down with the bottom part of the leg, and that's going to go around like that. Not brilliant, but I think that's probably as good as I'm going to be able to do. Okay, and then on this side, slightly different angle on this side, so we probably won't have as much, or maybe even any, of the bottom of the leg showing. But probably just a small amount there. Okay, right, so let's work on these hands. Now, I feel like I'll probably be saying quite a lot in this video. There are certain things which are not my strong point. One of my weak areas is hands. So having done those hands, those general blocks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another layer and do my hands on a separate layer so that they can be moved around and incorporated onto the drawing at a later stage. Let's see how we go. So let's concentrate on this one first. This will be the easiest one to do because it's not going to show an awful lot. With my style drawings, with the cartoon ones, I do my characters with 3 fingers and a thumb. So let's show where those fingers are. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dial back that just a tad so we can see the contrast there. So 3 fingers, that comes round on this side of the knuckle there. There, we've got knuckle there and there as well. It comes around and joins the wrist like that. So far so good. We then have the thumb on the top here. So the thumb is mainly tucked around in front of the fist, so we don't see an awful lot of it there, but we know it's there, so we have to draw it anyway. And then that finger comes back round, and if you have a look at, if you make a fist with your left hand, and obviously it's the left hand that we're drawing now, and you have a look at the creases that you've got where the finger bends round, that gives you an idea of what you need to be drawing. So just a few creases like that will hopefully give the impression of a hand. Now, what I don't want to do at this stage is put lines in it here, because it's not a, there aren't actually lines on that. It's going to be something which is reflected when we actually come to colour it. Now, in terms of the this finger here, it has to go round like that and bends round to join the thumb, and obviously then we have the thumb there. So that's our basic hand. Now it's a bit tight at the moment, so let's just loosen it up, make it a little bit more cartoon-like, rather than somebody who's doing the video on YouTube is doing it a bit too complicated. Okay, so yeah, that's alright. Right, and then we go on to this one. Now, obviously, this one's going to be a little bit more complicated because it's going to be showing a lot more finger detail. So let's just draw the basic fingers in again. So, like before, we've got the 3 fingers. We draw those in like that, and then we're going to have obviously on the inside of the fingers. Like that. Okay. Probably angles slightly off, I think, with those. Okay, now, so these aren't square, so they need to be rounded to show that they are fingers. Now these the fingers, the joint, obviously, because if you make a fist with your right fist and have a look at it, what we're drawing here are the parts of the fingers that you can see nearest to the palm, and that's these bits here. We then have these bits, which are the bit that join the knuckles. Now, as you'll probably see from your own fingers, the knuckles don't actually go all the way, so let's dial that down a little bit. And then we have the bumps there, which show the knuckles. We then get onto the fun bit of drawing the thumb. Now, the thumb is obviously going to be coming round up from the top here, and then round. So I like to put the thumb in first to show what it's going to be doing, like that, and then actually work on incorporating that thumb into the fist. Probably a bit too big and pronounced there, actually. Let's just get rid of that so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, so I think that's still a bit too pronounced there. That's better. And not forgetting, of course, that the behind in this area, we've got to have the the finger is still there, lurking away underneath the thumb. And like I say, this line doesn't actually exist. It's going to be shown by the colouring. And I think that's probably as good as I'm ever going to do. Now, Booster Gold has his Legion flight ring, of course, which is what gives him the power of flight. That's going to have to be drawn in. My understanding is that appears on his left hand, so let's give him a ring and we'll put it on this one. Right, so let's dial that back up, and then we'll start putting some of the rest of the details in. Now, looking at Booster Gold's costume, he has gloves, blue gloves, and just on his forearms are his trademark golden colour, not quite forming full-length gloves, but let's just put those in so that we can see where they'll be, like so. And in terms of the rest of his costume, so down here we've got this V shape which marks the top of the golden part of his trouser part of his costume, and then up at the top we have got this V which goes down towards the top of the abdominal muscles, which actually I think, I'm not doing this from memory, I'm looking at some drawings on Google, and they go over like that and actually join up the top of the arm muscles there, and then we've got the star. Okay, so those the gold bit actually appears. The gold bit at the this chest bit actually goes a little bit wider than that. So let's just do that. Actually seems to form part of the shoulder muscle there. Let's put it up. And likewise over here. Super. Right, so now we're going to do the really difficult bit. I'm not brilliant, it's that phrase again. Eyes are, again, something which I really struggle with, so I always prefer drawing characters who have masks which cover their eyes. Booster Gold has got no mask as such. He wears a nice big pair of orange sunglasses which will show his eyes still, but let's see how we go. Just clearing some of these lines off that we don't need anymore. Okay, so in terms of his facial design, then, so let's put in an eye line so we can see where we're going putting his eyes. That means that we need to have over on this side an eye socket, effectively, which shows the top of the cheekbone on the right hand side. Over on this side, his ears aren't visible, but they are sort of covered up by his part of the costume, so we do see a bit of an ear lump. Let's put a bit of a side of the face in there. And now in terms of the sunglasses originate obviously over the eyes, obviously, and they come from the ears, although they don't actually appear to be connected to the ears. Let's just do some basic outlines, and we'll beef those up shortly. I have to say, I think I'm doing very well so far, because Autodesk Sketchbook, as much as I love it, has a habit of crashing on me quite a lot, and so far it's not done it, although I think I've probably now jinxed it. So we're going to have the nose coming down, and the glasses themselves bend up over the nose, the bridge of the nose, and then back down again, and they taper up like that before going round. Now, actually, thinking about it, the glasses are going to cover up that bit of cheekbone that we've just done, and then they're going to come back down like that. Okay, so that's his glasses taken care of. Now, looking at his costume, certainly at the top, he, a bit like the Cyclops costume from X-Men, he's got his hair poking out of the top, so let's just do the top where that's going to be. Let's tidy up that ear area again, and coming down from where the glasses are, we've got the bottom of his costume, so let's just do that down. Now, in terms of his jaw, the jaw originates from the bottom of the ear, so if this is where the ear is, let's just draw where the jaw is going to be. So the jaw will come down, and it will come round like that, and let's give him a strong jaw at the bottom, and then that will go round like that, and then round at that side there. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to see the jaw too greatly because we've got this this costume, so that comes down probably. In fact, what we'll do is do it all the way, and we'll have it so that his chin is on display, but we'll hint at the jaw later on. So we've got the nose again, so the nose is going to originate from the top there down, and I'm just going to do a hint at the nose rather than actually doing a full constructed nose. We'll just hint at it, we know it's there. And in terms of the mouth, one of the things that I have picked up since I've taken up drawing superheroes is that male superheroes need to have a big chin, which means that the mouth itself needs to be fairly close to the bottom of the nose. Now, Booster Gold has a reputation for being quite a smug, self-assured character, so we're going to keep it simple with a small smile curled up in the corner of the mouth like that, and then obviously we'll show the bottom of the chin. It's a bit lower, we'll do it there. Okay. Right, and now the really difficult bit for me is the hair. One of the many things I'm not good at. So let's have a go at doing the hair now. Booster Gold is famous for his sort of spiky style hair. Obviously it's all scrunched up and being kept in by the top of his costume, or this mask. do actually for the hair. Obviously we'll tidy that up later on. Okay, let's see how long we've been doing. So that's been recording now for 35 minutes. That's how long it's taken me to do the pencils. It's not perfect because I'm not a perfect artist by any stretch of the imagination. I think what I'll probably do is, I should appreciate that we've got the eyes behind here, so I'm just going to draw in some almond shapes just so that we can be appreciative of the fact that they're there. I'm going to revisit that when I come to do the inks, as to whether or not I'm going to include the eyes. It is possible, I think, certainly to draw the character without the eyes being present. Certainly, if you think back to the incarnation from Batman Brave and the Bold, his eyes aren't visible behind the sunglasses. I think it's only the sort of realistic comic book style which has that, so I probably will leave it as it is. So let's get on and do the inks. So as you probably remember, I've done those on 2 layers. I'm happy with it, as happy as I can be. So I'm going to merge those 2 layers on here. So I've got a single drawing, and I'm going to resize that so that it's the right size for my canvas. That'll do, I think. Okay, that's done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to dial that down so it's just there in the background. Select black. Now over on my pens, my brushes, my favourite one for doing my inking is this inking pen. I always turn the stability on, which is this one here. You'll see what the stability does is if I just do a simple line, squiggle, you'll see that it doesn't do anything with that. If I turn the stability on, I do a simple line, it tidies it up. Sometimes it's a good effect, sometimes it's not. But for me, I think I need it. So let's get rid of those. And let's start off. So we'll start off at the top with the hair. Now, I apologise now because I feel most comfortable doing brush strokes in a particular way. So I always feel most comfortable doing my brush strokes from left to right. And when it is necessary to do a right to left one, just like there, I tend to prefer to do it left to right, and that sometimes, very often, means that I have to rotate the canvas quite a lot. That's one of the reasons why I like this particular program, because using it on a touchscreen device such as a Microsoft Surface, I can just use my fingers and I can rotate the canvas very quickly, and that's very, very helpful for me. So just like there, rotating it, zooming in, getting it neat and tidy, just like that, and then we'll scoop, go around like that. Okay. So let's get these glasses done. I keep calling them sunglasses. I suspect they're not actually for protection from the sun. Maybe somebody with a much greater knowledge of the character can let me know what their purpose is, whether it's just there for design, or whether it's to conceal his identity. I'm aware that Booster Gold is obviously a hero from the future. He gets his powers from stealing artifacts from a museum. He's given, I understand, by the Legion of Superheroes a flight ring, which is what allows him to fly. But beyond that, I'm not sure I know much about the character. Now, just looking back at the pencils that I've done, as you probably see it worked out there, I'm not happy with that bit there. I don't think I need to go back into the pencils and actually redo that. I think what I can just simply do is just do the cheekbone like that. I think that works very nicely. And then put in the chin there, take that round, and then that goes up to join the glasses. Let's do the nose. Stronger nose than that. And that's a self-righteous grin. Lovely. Okay. Let's just do a bit of a hint at the rotation of that ear bit. I'm going to come down there. So let's do that bit. This is why it's so important to spend some time getting your pencils right, because having good pencil lines really makes the inking stage a lot easier. So I'm not happy with it. You'd have thought the star was the bit that was giving the most grief. Probably going to end up coming back to that again anyway. This is probably the most boring bit from your point of view. Without my riveting commentary about what we're doing. So obviously we're going over the inks. I'm using quite a thick brush here. The reason being, as I prefer to control the thickness of the line by pressing harder rather than by actually going into the settings and adjusting the thickness of it. So there will be times when my own ham-fistedness is such that I can't actually do that. I do the job properly. So I will have to reduce the size of the brush, especially when getting on to dealing with the finer details of a drawing, which we're not there yet. It doesn't look too terrible. Incidentally, for those of you who are watching in North America, it's the 22nd of November today, which is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to you. Thanksgiving isn't something which we celebrate in the UK. It would be lovely to have another day off work without having to use up holidays, but it's something which I don't think we've ever really bothered with, or not, certainly in more recent years. Okay, so that's the leg taken part of over there. And you see, because I am much better drawing left to right, I have to rotate that round so that I can actually get it in the position that I need it in. No, I'm not happy with that. That needs to go there, I think. I think looking back at my original pencils, actually, the intention was that you wouldn't actually be able to see any of the bottom part of the leg. So let's stick with that. Okay, now I'm not going to draw in the in inks the abs yet. I might decide to do that later. The reason being is that sometimes I think they look better hinted at rather than being actually drawn. For me to do them like that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, and we'll see what it looks like when we come to the colouring stage. It may be that I revisit that. Okay, let's do skeets then, and then we're almost done. Excellent. Right, now I just need to remind myself in terms of his costume. He has blue boots on which go slightly below the knee, so in terms of this one I'm going to have to draw those in, so I think it's probably as good to do it like that, but because of the style of this one we don't have to worry about that. Right, so I think we're probably good to move on to the next stage. So what we'll do is we'll turn off the pencils, just give that a looking over and see if there's anything obviously missing. I can't see that there's anything obviously missing, so hopefully that's going to be fine. Now my approach to colouring has changed fairly recently, and I hope that the new technique that I use produces a much better drawing. Some people might think this is a little bit cheating. I don't. I think it's a very good way of doing it. And what I do is I duplicate my inks, and then using the bottom layer I use the fill tool to fill in the larger areas. So let's choose a blue. That looks like a fairly decent blue. Get our fill, and we're going to fill in the areas that we know are in blue. Now again, I'm going to have to consult my drawing, so that's that. Now obviously that's revealed a problem with the inks. There's obviously a hole somewhere. I think it's probably here. And what I do is I patch up the hole, any obvious holes like that, so that I can then hopefully refill. Wrong bit. Like that. There we are. Okay, and if I apply that again, that's given us a good bit of coverage. And then in terms of the torso, that's the same colour like that. The arm is the same, the chest there, and then there as well. Obviously it's a bit too tight there, so let's fill those in. Great. Okay, and then the star on his chest as well. Right, let's go for a skin colour. Skin for me is always hit and miss. I sometimes go into the Copic colours on here and try and find something which is good. So in the oranges or the yellows, he's quite a self-assured guy. I imagine he spends a lot of time tanning, so I think we want to give him a decent colour. So let's try YR82, see what that's like. Yeah, that's okay. And then in terms of his hair, he's definitely blonde, so we'll go into the yellows for these and see what we can find. See what that maybe a bit browner than that. Yeah, I think that's probably a good colour for him. In fact, I quite like that. See if I can get a slightly yellowy version of that. No, let's stick with no. Let's stick with that one. We'll work on it a bit later on. Glasses again. They're gold. So let's have a look what we've got there. That looks all right. And I think in fact, that colour will probably work quite nicely for the rest of him. Yeah. And obviously we've got to do his hands as well. Now, let me just double check what colour his ring is. His ring appears to be gold. So we'll borrow that gold again there. Excellent. Right, and now I need to give Skeets some colour. I'm just going back to my reference images to see what I can find. So we've got a darker colour in there. We've got a red light there, and then we're going back to the good old-fashioned gold. That'll do. Excellent. Right, so those are what are typically referred to as the flats, the flats images, the flats colours. There's no highlights, there's no shadows there. Now my original colouring technique would be to put some shadows and put some highlights in there on a different layer. I will still do that, but before I do that, the most recent technique that I've been doing is I've been duplicating the flats layer, just so that I've got an original copy of that in case something goes wrong with what I'm about to do. And on the new layer, I'm going to lock the transparency, which you'll see is this padlock bit over here, which means that I can now only draw on those bits which are coloured. So if I turn the background off, basically if it has the checkboard, I can't colour on it, which is what I want to do. Let's turn that back on. And now, using my airbrush, I'm going to put in some general highlight and shadow areas. So I'm going to turn the flow down quite a bit. I'm doing it about 30%. And it's got a large brush, the largest brush that I can get, and I'm now going to put in some general highlight areas. Now you need to decide from which direction the light is coming. I think for this drawing, the light is going to be coming from the left to the right. So basically, everything, just give you an example, everything on from here is going to be lit up, and everything on here is going to be in shadow. Well, not quite in shadow, it's going to be darker. So let's work on that way. So let's work on the lights first. So let's start down to about 30% again, and I'm going to put in some general, it's really subtle demonstration of where the gradient of the light is going to be. So I don't want it to be too harsh when we come to actually putting the proper shadows and the proper lights. Okay, so obviously this bicep here is going to get some. In fact, I need to probably dial that down a little bit size-wise, because I'm just getting a bit too much elsewhere. And probably dial down the flow as well. It's not going quite according to plan. Let's turn it down even more, slightly bigger. Okay, and then having done that, I'll do exactly the same with the shadows, with the blacks. Turn that flow up. Okay, we've got poor skeets. Let's sort him out. Excellent. Right, so having done that, you can see there's, for turn one off, you'll see the difference. I suppose it could be a temptation just to leave it there actually, but I'm not going to. I'm quite want to increase it a little bit. So let's go on to the highlights and shadows in the my traditional way. Now the pen that I like to use for this is in a downloadable pen set called Jason's Art Brushes, and it's this one called Inca, and that gives a nice textured feel. So having selected that, I'm now going to go through those areas which are dark, which have an absence of light. So let's put some highlights in the hair. Let's turn that down a little bit. So like that. I'm going here because we've got the ear bit which is protruding. So we're just looking for the areas which we know are going to have a lot less light getting to them, either because they're far away from the light source or they are being blocked by the light source. Now these fingers here, obviously they're not exposed to the light, as neither is the inside of the hand, so that's why we're colouring that in. It's not going to stay as black as this. You'll see what I'm going to do in just a mo. So a bit of shadow underneath these glasses, around the nose. On the chin as well. Okay. And again on this on skeets as well. Okay, so I think we're probably where we need to be with that. And then what we do is I like to play around with the blending modes. Now what I think usually works for the shadows is the overlay. So turn that on, and as you can see it made quite a big difference. And I can reduce that accordingly just so I get the right level. I think that looks good. I sometimes don't bother with the overlay. I sometimes leave it as normal, but you can see it does make the colour really quite black, or certainly darker. What I like, I think, about the overlay is that it still remains the same colour, but just a darker version of it, rather than having all that black in it. Right, and now we do the same with the lights. So let's go on exactly the same thing, but we do it with a white pen instead. So we've got the highlights here. Let's get rid of all those. So again, we're just concentrating on the areas where the light is going to be most prominent. That's either because it's the closest parts, or it's in really direct exposure to what's going on. Now, actually, I just realised that whilst I'm thinking about it, I mentioned earlier that the thickness of the fingers will get hinted at with the colouring, and that's what I meant to do there. So I think that just needs resolving. That's that sorted. Let's get back to my whites. Right, so I think that's where we want to be with that. Maybe a bit more on the river there and on that chest. So what we're going to do now is adjust that accordingly. Again, we can play around with the play mode, or the blending modes. My personal favourite is the soft light. I think that works quite well. And then again, we can dial the transparency down to find the level that we're happy with. I think it doesn't need too much. And then once we're happy with that, I'm just going to go and tidy up a couple of these bits which look a bit too rough for my liking. Okay, that's lovely. Right, so quite happy with that. I'm very happy with that. What I sometimes do is I use the blur tool on here to maybe blur some of these bits. So down here on this leg, for example, I think this is a little bit too prominent. So what I sometimes do is go onto the layer and then use the blur tool to blur that out a little bit. Likewise over here, just so that that's not quite so obvious. I'll do the same on these ones. And I think we probably need to do the same on the light bit as well, like that. Excellent. And then, right, so now what I do is I create a new layer on the very top as soon as it starts responding. There we are. And I like just to add a few little, they're not so much details as such, but they do give the appearance of details, but a few sort of random lines which give the impression of detail. I mean, sometimes you can actually use them to add in where there should be detail. So here, for example, the top of the chest muscles. On here, we can add a bit of a reflection in the glasses. We can add some highlights in the hair. A couple of on the skeets as well. Let's do something on the ring. It just gives it a bit of a dynamic feel, so that we get the sense that, you know, this is not just somebody standing still. This is somebody who has some life in them. I think that's possibly as much as I need to do. I just want to revisit the shadows on this muscle here. I think it could probably be a little bit better, and I am going to blur that ever so slightly. Which hopefully is done. Now, I mentioned to you that the program likes to crash. It has crashed. It's now not responding to my touch, so I'm just going to shut that down and come straight back into it. Sign into my account, and there we are. Okay, so now we're back in. We're back in play. Right, so I'm going to do a really basic background to him, because I'm conscious that this video has been going now for an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm going to do a really basic, just a shape. I've got a new layer on the background, and I'm going to choose a circle, go back to my inking pen, and I'm going to draw that circle just like that. I'm going to fill it in just like that, and then above that, new layer, get a white pen, use the same inking pen as before, and this is where I'm going to go round and just do a white outline around the entirety of the drawing. and this gives it quite a nice bit of contrast from the background. It helps stand it out, or it stand out rather, very nicely. One of the things that it also does is, if I was not trying to be quick, I'd probably have gone and onto my shadings, and where I've gone over the lines I would have erased them so that they're not there, but by doing this it does help cover up those areas where maybe I was a little bit too ham-fisted doing my shading. Where have we missed? There we are. And of course Skeets, can't forget him. And then lastly, and possibly most importantly, just so that you know who's done it. And there we have it. I'm really happy with that actually. When I first thought about doing Booster Gold, I thought that would be a terrible idea because it's not a character I've ever drawn. But I think that's actually worked out really well. I'm really pleased with that. So thank you very much for watching. I hope it hasn't been too boring or too tedious for you. Let me know what you think. If you want me to do any others, is there any particular aspects of my style to drawing that you'd like me to cover? Let me know what your thoughts are. So thank you ever so much.